just a minute to show up over there. Sometimes we're live like we probably are right now, and I can't see it yet. So hello, everyone, if you're listening right now. All right, so we are officially live. Hey, guys, I have the one and only Rob Panepinto. Did I say that right?
You always do.
Okay, good. That's a great name. And we're going to talk about a topic that is on everybody's mind: reopening. What does it even mean? And how is that going to look, and what's the balancing act going to be when we do reopen? So welcome back to the show, my friend. We have been trying, and it's been my fault. Thank you very much.
Trying to do your sharing here. And
oh, yeah, it's okay. They're used to it because I have to do the exact same thing.
all right.
And if it works, great. If it doesn't.
I did tell Ted as we were setting up that this is the first college shirt I've worn in quite a while.
I think a lot of people are in that same mode. It's like, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And then all of a sudden you're like, this could be my new outfit forever. T-shirt or whatever, but you at least have jeans on. I do not.
I do. Proof.
See, it's real, guys. Somebody actually is wearing pants.
Yes.
That's probably a first right now for all right. So you've been on the show before, but tell people a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, and then what you're currently doing whether or not this quarantine is going on.
Sure. Yeah. So you know, I've spent a long time in the business community here, and also very active in the nonprofit space. Early part of my career is with an early stage company that went from being an audio cassette manufacturer to a healthcare tech company, which was an amazing 20-year journey. And like we talked a little bit about that last time, and we sold it in 2011. And after that, I really put almost all of my energy and effort to helping other early stage companies and entrepreneurs and innovative companies grow. In part, we'll talk a little about today. I think that to really diversify and grow this economy, that's a very important component of what we need to do. And you look at other communities, folks who've been fortunate enough to be successful have gotten re-involved, and I'm fortunate to work with so many others who do the same thing. So I've done that as an investor, but also be involved in a lot of the early stage accelerators, and got heavily involved in the nonprofit and the social enterprise community through that. Was the chair of the board for the Central Florida Foundation, which helps deal with a lot of our major issues in the community. And then, as you know, when we first met, we met because I got a little frustrated by some of the things I saw in the community that I didn't think were moving fast enough, and decided to run for county mayor. Obviously lost to our current mayor, Jerry Demings, who I have a wonderful relationship with, and I appreciate a lot of what he's doing from a leadership perspective in our community right now. So I'm glad I get to work with him. And since that time, I've just gone back to doing what I was doing before, to be very active in the community, really in two ways. One, continuing to help early stage entrepreneurs and early stage businesses grow. I have a part-time role at UCF, helping build their innovation district strategy, which is a very exciting way to bring more innovative jobs to the community. And also during the campaign, I talked a lot about affordable housing, which is a real pressing issue in our community, and unfortunately not likely to get any better because of this. And through the Central Florida Foundation, we've been looking at some ways to raise some private capital in innovative ways. And some of the viewers may have seen, probably about 60 days before our world changed, we had announced the launch of a $100 million fund to raise private and philanthropic capital to support affordable housing. We're still doing that rather quietly, but I expect that's something we'll get back on the horse on once the economy does get back to hopefully some semblance of normal. So I'm still here trying to, make this a better place to the best ability I can.
Well, what I love about you sharing your background is that gives us, you must have turn your volume down on the phone. Yes, is that you? All right, there we go. I heard a little background noise. Here's what I love about you sharing all that. You obviously have your finger on the pulse of what's going on. And I think one of the biggest things that is on everybody's mind, if not the biggest thing, is how are we going to reopen? What's it going to look like? And what does that mean for me, my family, my business, either my personal business I own or the business that I work for? And how are we going to figure out how to balance it all as we roll it out? So that's a big topic, but I'd love for you to kind of give your insight on what you think even the first steps are going to be in order for us to reopen, to really open up things.
First of all, I think this is such a tough decision. It's hard. And so I admire Steve Leary is the mayor of Winter Park. He posted something on Facebook the other day. He said, I don't care if you're a D, an R, or an I. You're sort of saying, you just to cut everybody a little bit of slack right now. This is kind of uncharted water. And I kind of, I definitely believe in that. And honestly, I think a lot of my thoughts aren't even just about how do you recover, but then what do we look like afterwards? Because I think the nature of our economy, the blessings of an economy that drives so many jobs and 70 million people coming here, create now obviously some significant challenges to us in how we reopen, and then what happens afterwards. Because you look at even just as simple as what sales tax and tourist development tax look like in this community. Right. It's a challenge in terms of resources. In terms of reopening, I don't know that I have a magical wand here at all. In fact, I know I probably don't, because I do think you've got, obviously, we've done a good job here of keeping the spread down. I've seen some stuff from both Daryl Toll and David at Orlando Health about that they've been able to keep capacity down. I think that's because Disney and Universal and SeaWorld back in March shut some things down.
Yes.
The county government, city government followed after that. The state followed. People have, it's tough on us, but I think everyone sort of recognizes it's for the greater good. And I think that's why we have as few cases as we do here, because we've acted, I think, appropriately and responsibly. The problem with coming out, though, is we don't have one economy here. We have at least two, because you've got the main engine of growth here, which is most of our jobs, most of our tax revenue. And it's also the one that, if you think about spread, it's the one that would most likely generate spread, right? And so, but I will tell you, I do trust both our local government, but also the leaders at Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld, and the smaller groups as well, to make some smart decisions. Again, those guys closed weeks before government stepped in and put the lockdowns down. So I mean, I know they're wrestling with that, and at some point we have to bring that back. But obviously, that can't be the first thing that comes back. I don't know if anyone would come anyway, and even if they did, there are some huge safety risks and health risks.
That's the thing. I think people don't know. So we're gonna let's say we open up in phases. So you open up. Let's say we open up restaurants. I feel really bad for our restaurants and our small businesses. It's been horrific. So many of them have risen to the best that they can, but it doesn't mean, guys, that it's still not a tremendous struggle for all of them. But let's say you open back up and you can have 10 people in a restaurant. Well, who's going to be the first to dip their toe in that pool? And how does that work? And then what if you have the 11th person? Are we all coming in wearing masks? Like all of these things that I don't know that we can turn. And I'd like your opinion on this. I don't know that we can just turn the switch on and then all of a sudden we're miraculously back to, I don't know, February 1st, January 1st.
I don't think there's a switch. And again, I try to be as apolitical about this situation right now as I can. I don't really think, at the national, the local, and the state level, I think everyone who's serious about this is saying there's no switch. This is a dimmer. And so again, how do you look at a restaurant on iDrive versus a restaurant in Winter Garden or Winter Park? And so maybe those open with safe social distancing practices, with maybe at half capacity or smaller capacity, with outdoor seating, and maybe some folks wearing masks, and menus that are thrown away, and a lot of sanitizing. Maybe that's easier to do than certainly reopening International Drive or Sand Lake, parts of Sand Lake Road, which are so heavily in the tourist area. So I think we're gonna. I imagine that's probably what we're going to see. I think we'll see certain things that maybe are a little more locally skewed, if they could be done safely.
I think people don't know, like, especially that you mentioned it. I thought about masks, but I didn't think about the restaurant. Like, am I going to wear a mask? And then how do I, these are just simple little things. How do I take it off while I'm eating? And then in between bites when I'm chewing, I'm talking, how am I drinking my wine or my cocktail? Like, these are the things that I think, I'm pretty sure a lot of restaurant owners are trying to figure out how to manage and maneuver through. But then you have to have the people. You have to have the people who are willing to go out and take that. I mean, people say they're hungry to get out, that they want to get out. I got to get out of the house. But then what's it really going to look like? How are we going to manage 6 feet apart? Are we going to stay 6 feet apart? Is it going to come down to 3 feet apart? There's just so many unknowns, but I know we're all getting restless. And I think that's where some of the protests are coming from. And people are losing, they're not only just been furloughed, now they've lost their job completely. Their business has shut down. Their business didn't get the money or any of the stimulus money that came out.
Well, so I mean, and if I said that's an important point. I mean, I am waiting. I'm a little surprised it hasn't happened yet. Why Congress has not figured out a way to get the PPP program replenished, because there are a lot of small businesses, maybe because they didn't have a close banking relationship out of the block, or maybe it took them a little bit longer to get the documentation that was required done. They got left on the outside, and they were probably the people least able to be left on the outside. So we've got to find a way to help those folks, because the bank struggled with this. It was hard. We did something that had never been done very, very quickly. So again, I'm given a lot of slack for that, because I think people had good intentions, and the execution hasn't always been perfect, but you would expect it to be. But if you didn't already have a relationship with your local banker in those first few days, it was going to be hard. I mean, I work with a lot of these small businesses that are incubators in UCF, and a lot of folks reach out, and that is a real problem. You have a lot of small businesses in this community who should be helped, who have not been helped yet. And I think if we could do that too, then the conversation about recovery gets a little bit less tense as well, because you're compensating some folks for basically the government saying you can't do business, and help them get to the other side and give us a little more time. I think that might help calm some of the, hey, I got to get back to work. I got to get back to work stuff. So Congress needs to do something on that this week.
I agree. So tell me what you think. Give some advice on, since you do consult with and you give advice to and give insights to small businesses on a regular basis. What can somebody who watches the show do if they are either a restaurant owner, small business owner, whatever they are, and they want to get ready? They want to be prepared for when the next phase or the first phase of opening is. What can they be doing now to stay ahead of the game?
Yeah, well, hopefully they were able to participate in either the state or the federal programs, or even some of the local programs. I know Winter Park, there's a small business support program that the Winter Park Commission passed this week, and so there are dollars out there that hopefully people will have exhausted. Hopefully they've already done everything they can do around deferring payments, managing their cash flow, just giving them enough cash and capital to get as far along as they can. In the restaurant business, interesting, I've actually done some work in the sanitizing space over the last month. And there's no doubt that, much like 9/11 changed our perceptions of how we travel and what our expectations are about travel, I actually expect, at least in the short term, the midterm, that's going to be the case as well around things like sanitization. So I would expect that any place that's going to be welcoming consumers back in better be very prepared to show how they're cleaning their facility, probably have sanitizers and hand sanitizer there, are spraying their counters down, are really enforcing the social. There's no way that social distancing is not going to be continued to maintain in phase one. There's no way. And I think, even some of the big chains have struggled with this. I know a lot of people are worried about, they go into Publix and there are folks that just aren't following that. And I think the places that can show that, hey, we're trying to reopen, please be respectful of the fact that we're trying to put our business back together, but there's still a whole bunch of things we're going to have to do. I think for the business to show that to the consumer, and then also to some extent to enforce a little bit of the consumer saying, we're trying to keep 6 feet apart here. We're trying, right? Because we want to stay in business. I think, to some extent, much of this angst now that's going on about the reopening of the beaches is all a result of some of the pictures of people not acting appropriately during spring break. And so for folks that just want to walk on the beach rather safely, couldn't do that because, of what happened over spring break here. So, I think both the businesses and I think all of us just have to recognize we are going to operate, unfortunately, until there's a therapeutic and certainly a vaccine. We're going to do some stuff we're not comfortable with. I mean, they're talking about baseball games only in Texas, Florida, and Arizona, maybe, and no people in the stands. And
nope. I think that's the key too. I think that people, there are ways that some of those organizations like sports can do what they've done. People can watch it from television if that's what they want to do. Most of us do anyway. But I think that people just they want the normal to go back to the way it was. And I just keep encouraging people, it's just not going to be like
not right away.
It's just not. There's going to be phases that come out. And I think that there's a whole bunch of material out there, whether you believe it or not, but I'm not talking the conspiracy theorists. There's a whole bunch of material out there about second rounds of this. Even the gentleman, Dr. I'm going to mispronounce his name, but it's Fauci. He has come out and said, you have to be prepared that if we don't roll this out properly, that you could have another phase of this in the fall. You could continue. It could be seasonal. It could be a normal thing. And I think that people, just because they are so they feel so cooped up, or they are in a place where they're not earning any money, that stress level is just through.
Yeah, and Ted, again, I think that's an important point unique to our economy, because whether it's 6 months, 4 months, 6 months, 12 months, however long the time is, at a very big macro level, if we don't, even once we're past this initial burst here, if we, the greater Orlando community, aren't able to communicate to the world that it's safe to come here for a convention or a vacation, then that has some enormous spillover effects to everyone that lives here in terms of poverty, homelessness, all the social issues that we, frankly, dealt with disproportionately in a booming economy.
Right.
For those of us who remember what 2008, 2009, 2010 looked like here, that, I'm hoping that doesn't happen here. I'm hoping there's this V-shaped recovery, but that confidence piece is really important. And unfortunately, and again, I have a lot of confidence in Disney, Universal, SeaWorld, and those guys to, visit Orlando to really work on that and communicate that message and put the steps in place to do that. But I think this community also needs to understand, even though for those of us who are not in that industry, even if we kind of get to some semblance of normal in our local lives, right, where we can go to our local restaurant, if we don't create the magic again of Orlando for a tourism standpoint, because our economy still isn't as diversified as I know I would like it to be, that has some significant downstream effects to us that I'm really concerned about. Right? We'll still have double-digit employment here. We'll have a lot of issues in homelessness and poverty and mental health and opioids and all this.
Well, that's the thing too. People have to understand that all of those social issues are still going on. And now we're trying to figure out how to fix or help or assist or guide or raise money for all of them in a world where we're all sequestered in our homes, and you're not having your big fundraisers. You're not able to access those meetings, even though we're Zooming them. It's still not the same. It's been a slowdown even for the social issues. And so we still have the problems, though. We still have the people on the streets. We still have the opioid crisis. We still have so much going on, and yet we're all trying to maneuver it from our, like me, bedroom or wherever you happen to work. And it just is a challenge. It doesn't mean it's insurmountable. It just means we have had to figure out a different way to do it. And, it's a little slower than I think most people would want. All right, I have to ask, Last question. I have to see how fast it goes. I have to ask, what are you doing personally? Because you're in it. You're in the throes of it. You've got this small business community on your mind and on your plate all the time. But what are you, Rob, doing personally to stay positive, to stay above water, to stay creative?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm fortunate enough to be just an optimist by, I don't know whether it's genetic code or nature. So I am always someone who certainly believes tomorrow should be a better day. And, this may be a longer tomorrow, but I feel that way. We try to get out and exercise where we can, do it appropriately. I've got both, my oldest daughter is a freshman at college from Boston who's home right now. She's actually having the hardest time out of all of us. I mean,
I bet.
It's been, for me, this is largely inconvenience, right? For her, it's a little more disruptive, and she sees on the news every day that Boston may be the next hotspot. And so now she's already petrified. She's not going back to school in September, and her whole college experiences. So I get to play, my wife and I, Stacy, get to play counselor a little bit to her to calm her down, which helps us stay calm. Listen, the flip side is the beauty is we're definitely spending more time together as a family. And there are, some things we're doing now that we weren't doing before, and whether it's walks or paddle boarding, and there's just a little more time for that sort of stuff. And I will say too, I find people are the vast majority so much nicer to each other. I mean, if you're walking around, I live in Winter Park. I was walking around Winter Park with my daughter the other day, and literally every person you pass, it's at least a smile and a wave, if not a good morning, how are you, how are you feeling? And that, that helps lift your spirit a little bit. And I hope some of that remains as we get back to this. I mean, you even see it in the small restaurants that are open, the bakeries, and I think the tenor of conversation with the folks that are in there trying to keep their businesses afloat. I mean, I always try to thank them. I ask them how their business is going. I'm curious how much of it they've been able to maintain. So, that helps a little bit too, because I do think people do. I don't want to say that we're all in this together, because I hear that 8 million times a day. But I do think that people, for the most part, do feel a sense of shared experience, because this is touching everyone in little ways and big ways. And that helps me feel more optimistic too, because it always reminds you, to me at least, at the core, in general, people are good. Right? People are good. They want good. They have good intentions. They want to do good. And that's always a positive for me.
And with that, thank you so much for being on the show, my friend. I tagged you in the post, so hopefully people will reach out to you. He's an open book, guys. Rob is. So reach out to him if you have questions. You're a small business. Maybe you got something on your mind. Don't flood his phone, but I definitely flood his Facebook or his social media. He's also on LinkedIn, which we'll be posting this on later as well. But thank you so much for coming on and giving us your insights.
Oh, my pleasure, Ted. And I hope everyone out there who is listening and watching is doing well and staying safe.
Amen. All right. Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Great to see you, buddy.
Yeah, of course. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. We'll be back.